he's passionate.
Yeah.
And he's a friend of a friend and had said that like it kind of rubbed him the wrong way that I would take that job. At the time, I was still young and hungry and I would say yes to everything. But looking back, I shouldn't have and wouldn't if I could do it again.
Open the podcast bay door as hell.
Hello, everyone. These are the Welcome to Geektown interviews. I'm your host, Kurt Onstead. This week, we're starting a new interview. I'm still figuring out how to get new people to come on the show, so I apologize for the extra 2 weeks off between my last episode and this one. My guest this time is someone whose work I have followed pretty much from the beginning of their career. Writer Jay Faerber started in comics, but has expanded his focus to include quite a bit of television, including a number of projects that superhero fans will be familiar with. He mentions one of those as I ask him about the various items visible in the background of our chat, after which we get started in the more chronological approach. I like your setup in the background there. It's a little, you have it blurred out, but I can see the comic book rack there.
Yep. Yeah, that was a present from my wife.
Nice. And I can just make out a noble causes.
Yeah, it's all my stuff. Here, hold on. I know I can unblur it. I'm just trying to figure out where. Yeah, can you see it there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Near Death, Copperhead.
Yeah, it's basically I have a copy of everything I've written on the rack.
What's the lunchbox there on the top shelf?
Oh, it's from Supergirl. It's when I was on Supergirl. That was a wrap.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the only thing I can't make out really is.
Yeah, this is it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, 100th episode.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100th episode. That's what it was.
Very cool. Well, then let's get started.
Okay.
So I basically have a kind of traditional first question, which is, do you remember the first thing you read or you saw that made you think, this is what I want to do? I want to make this.
Boy, I can't isolate a specific story or book.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to tell stories basically my whole life. As a small child, I was into Super Friends and the Adam West Batman, and that stuff hooked me first, I think, and got me into superheroes. And then it became, then I was all in. Then it was comics and everything. So I think it was the storytelling bug was planted that early, but I can't pick a specific moment or story.
Okay. As I understand it, you focused on drawing first.
Yes. Yeah. Initially, I wanted to be an artist. I would write and draw my own comics and make up superheroes and stories, and did that for a long time, all through school, all through high school even. And then got accepted at a local community college as an art major, did one semester and just flamed out, just didn't have the discipline or the drive to want to get better. I was too impatient. I would see my classmates spend all day on a bowl of fruit, on getting it perfect, a painting or whatever. And I was like, I just want to get out and on to the next thing. And I had a professor pull me aside and said, if you want to draw comics, you have to learn how to draw. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't think I want to draw comics. And realized I really just wanted to tell stories. And I was only drawing comics because I had no one to draw them. So that kind of flipped a switch in my head, and I shifted everything to writing after that, and then focused more on the writing side of comics, and mystery stories were my two big things.
So what did you change your major to then?
I went from art to, I think, just English.
Okay. And then you were 26 when you got your first gig at Marvel.
Wow. Yeah, I guess so.
writing the final issue of that run of What If.
Yes.
Before we start talking about that, in between college and breaking in, what kind of day jobs did you have?
I had a variety of them. I'm trying to think. My biggest one was I was a bank security guard for a while. Not like in a uniform with a gun standing in the bank, but I would sometimes wear a uniform and just have to patrol an area. Like they would, not so much a bank, but a different property. That's what it was. Yeah, I'm misremembering. I started out as a security guard, and the bank was one of their contracts. And then I got hired by the bank itself, and I went to work at an alarm center where we were inside and in this like secure room, and any bank alarms for that bank in Seattle, Oregon, Idaho that rang, they would come into our center, and we would have to call the police and the FBI and take us all that kind of stuff. Most like 9 times out of 10, they were false alarms. But it was fun. It was cool. So that was my biggest, coolest day job probably in that time.
Okay. You say 9 times out of 10. How many actual bank robberies were you?
I'm trying to think. I know that I personally got the call for a robbery one time. I think I worked there for a year and a half maybe, and I got a robbery once. And I saw a few other robberies happen, like other colleagues of mine getting calls for robberies.
Right.
So in the time I was there, 10, 12 times maybe. This was late 90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
For working a year, so about once a month?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that sounds right.
All right, so let's get into your writing then.
Yep.
How many pitches did you send in before the first one was bought?
Oh, boy. It's funny. I don't know a number, but I know that at that point I had been friends with Devin Grayson, another writer who was just breaking in at DC mainly. And I went to New York to visit her, and we went into the city, into the DC offices. She introduced me around. I met some assistant editors, and this was all at DC, not Marvel. And then, okay, wait, there's another part of that. So I met some assistant editors at DC, and there was one named Allie Morales who we hit it off. And I remember sending her a handful of pitches. And this was through the mail, through snail mail.
Yeah.
Just, short, couple pages. And I would try to find obscure characters that I would try to dust off and turn in, give them their time in the sun as like a mini series. And I remember very clearly one day going to the mailbox and getting like 5 or 6 individual letters from her, all on DC stationery, letterhead, and everything. And they were all individual rejections for these pitches, but all personalized. And, it was clear that she had sat down to go through her pitches and read mine one after the other because I had sent a handful.
Right.
But turned them all down, but also gave me direction and encouraged me. And I pitched her something else that got a tiny bit of traction, but never went. And then around the same time, I think probably on that same trip, Devin also introduced me around Marvel, and Mark Powers was an editor there at the time. And I had sent him kind of a critical fan letter, basically like, here are some ways you could improve this X-Men comic you guys are doing. And he wrote back and was like, all right, smart guy, give it a shot. And sent me line artwork and a plot from an issue of X-Men that I think had already come out or was already on its way out.
Okay.
Just as like a sample, as like a tryout. He wanted to see me dialogue over somebody else's plot. And so I did that. And it was on that visit to New York that I met with him and he gave me feedback. And he was very nice, very patient. And again, I don't think I got work out of that time, but Allie's rejected pitches and this tryout that I had was enough to give me a tiny bit of cred. And around the same time, the internet was getting going and AOL chat rooms were becoming a thing. And I was and still am a soap opera nerd. And I had found out, I think in one of these message boards, that an editor at Marvel named Frank Pittarisi was also a big soap nerd. And we started chatting and hit it off. And Frank is the one who gave me my first gig and gave me this fill-in issue on What If. And it was born out of this common bond of soap operas, but also I had this kind of, thumbs up from Mark Powers, who was a colleague of his. And then very shortly after that, an editor at DC who was friends with Frank gave me a shot on like a 10-page Wonder Girl story that ran in one of their 80-page giants.
Right.
And his philosophy was like, you're good enough for Frank, I'll give you a shot. And I believe that, gosh, I can't remember which one came out first. I think the Wonder Girl might have come out first, but the What If, I had that gig first. I wrote that one first, or it was vice versa. But whichever one I landed and wrote second was the one that actually came out first.
Oh, okay. I find it interesting that a few of the next books you worked on, you were credited with the dialogue, but not the plot. Now, some people say that constraints actually fuel their creativity. Was that true for you, or was working over someone else's plot kind of frustrating in some ways?
No, I thought it was cool. I mean, it was honestly I think there's this isn't really done that way anymore. It's really rare to see somebody dialogue over someone else's plot.
Yeah.
And back then it was just because somebody was late usually. And so it was just a matter of banging it out as quickly as you can. So the constraints didn't bother me. What I wish I had been more careful. I remember I wrote dialogue over a plot for an issue of X-Force, I believe. And I believe I didn't even get the whole thing at once. It was like, this thing's running down to the wire. We got pages coming in. Here's what we have now. Dialogue, pages 1 through 8. And as we get artwork, we'll send it over. And I just remember, because I dialogued it in a few chunks, I have multiple characters referring to multiple female characters as sister. Not in a like we're related, but like, listen, sister. And sister, let me tell you. And if I did it once, that'd be one thing. But when multiple characters are saying this, it was the editor should have caught it too, but I blame myself. I should have done it in the first place. It was kind of a rookie mistake. But that's what I think of whenever I think of those plot dialogue issues. There was also one, and I regret this one. I dialogued over a Captain America issue that Mark Waid plotted. And I think I dialogued it because he had gotten fired off the book. Mark has kind of a history of getting fired off of things, and he's passionate.
Yeah.
And he's a friend of a friend, and had said that it kind of rubbed him the wrong way that I would take that job. At the time, I was still young and hungry, and I would say yes to everything. But looking back, I shouldn't have and wouldn't if I could do it again.
That makes sense. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. I understand both of that, the hunger of the youth and not wanting to rub somebody the wrong way.
Right.
Doing the right thing. So from there, your first regular series was Generation X. Yep. And following that were runs on New Warriors and Titans. Mm-hmm. Do you think your age helped you get books that were teen, young adult characters? Or was that kind of coincidence that those...
it might have helped, but it's funny because I feel like everybody was that age at that point. Like all my peers, like there were so many, Brian Vaughan, Devin Grayson, Joe Casey, Joe Kelly, Joe Harris, all these folks breaking in around that time. We were all kind of Brian Vaughan was still in college when he was breaking in, so he was younger. But we were all kind of in our late 20s, probably.
Okay.
And even a lot of the editors, some of them were older, but some of the ones that I worked with, especially the assistants, were all our age. So I'm sure that my youth helped and my passion for teenage superheroes helped, but everybody that I was sort of competing against in the marketplace, most of them were my age anyway, so it didn't really feel that way.
Okay. So what was it about teenage and young adult characters that attracted you then?
I don't know. I always just, going back to like Adam West, Batman and Robin, I always loved Robin. He was kind of my gateway character, and then seeing his growth in the Teen Titans comic. The new Teen Titans comic was my favorite comic because of Robin and because of I was a fan of his from Super Friends and stuff, and then I picked up a new Teen Titans comic, and I'm realizing this kind of answers your earlier question. It might have been that new Teen Titans comic. I picked up a new Teen Titans comic and saw like, oh my God, Robin is kind of grown up. he's got like a hot alien girlfriend and like this cool team. And I just loved it. I liked, and what I liked about the Titans in particular was that they didn't have like a mentor or a father figure like Professor X. You know, the X-Men had Professor X,
Mm-hmm.
and the Titans all had their individual mentors. But when they were Titans, they were usually on their own.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked was the young people having to make very grown-up decisions without the benefit of a mentor or a leader. And that's why, I mean, I love the X books for sure, but that's why Titans and New Warriors were two of my absolute favorite books because they kind of had that in common.
Well, speaking of New Warriors, as the world's biggest Speedball fan, I have to dive in a little deeper on that.
Sure. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
My memory's probably fuzzy, but I'll do my best.
Okay. Do you remember what the process was in deciding which characters would be in the lineup?
Yeah, it was a long process because I went through, I think, like 3 or 4 different editors just in the development process.
Oh, wow.
The New Warriors was commissioned by an assistant editor, I believe, named Julio Soto at the time, because he knew I was a fan, and I put together a pitch for him. And I think we worked on it a little bit, went back and forth. I don't remember. I think in that version, the lineup might have been all different, like none of the original Warriors, I think, but I can't remember for sure. And then there was one of these mass purges at Marvel where, you know, a dozen people get laid off. Julio was one of them, unfortunately. But the project was still alive. And then it went over, I think then it went to Frank Pittarisi and his assistant, Pete Franco. And it was kind of Pete spearheaded it. And then he and I worked on a version. You know, we made changes and a different lineup and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there was another, maybe there wasn't a purge, but Frank left to go to DC, I think. Or maybe he was just laid off. I can't remember. At any rate, I got another editor, Bobby Chase, and then Bobby was the editor who actually saw the book through. And then I think it was a conversation with the bigger editorial departments about, you know, what they wanted this book to be. And I think it came down that they wanted some originals.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how we got the mix of, you know, Nova, Namorita, Speedball, and then combined with these newer characters from other walks of life. Yeah. So, and I know that Aegis, the one I created for the book, he only existed in this last version. Like he wasn't a part of the previous 2 hitches.
Okay.
But it was pretty long. This went over the course of like a year at least, probably.
And the book lasted about a year.
Yeah. Yep.
And it ended up going through, I believe I counted 5 different pencilers.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it was a bit of a rocky road.
Now, I know writers tend to tailor their scripts to the artists that they're working with. Mm-hmm. So was it frustrating to have so many different people come on for an issue or 2, or did you like having a variety?
It was frustrating. I mean, part of it was frustrating because the reason that somebody was coming on in the first place was that the regular artist wasn't hitting the deadlines. And so our schedule was getting blown up.
Yeah.
So that was frustrating. And honestly, I'm sure if you asked me this years ago, I'd have a different answer. But looking back, I was still green enough that I probably thought that I was tailoring my scripts to different artists, but I don't know that I really was at that point. And plus, at Marvel, like, you know, when the script is due, it's due. And a lot of times you may not even know who's going to draw it. So, yeah, that part was a little frustrating, but it was mainly just not being able to settle into a rhythm and knowing that this artistic inconsistency was not helping our sales.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really when Jamal Igle came aboard, I think on issue 7.
Yeah.
And he and I really hit it off. And I believe if we had gotten more time, we could have turned things around, or if he had been on it from the beginning, it would have been a much smoother ride. But he's one of my favorite collaborators today because of that gig.
Yeah, that actually was going to be my next question, because I saw that, you know, after that you did work with him on a number of your creator-owned books. How quickly did you feel that click between you?
Pretty quickly. I remember we hopped on the phone, and it's funny, at the time I was living in New York, in Brooklyn, and he was in LA. And now I sit here in LA and he lives in Brooklyn. But yeah, we just had a great phone call, and Jamal's a talker, and we just really hit it off, and we're able to, like, he was also a fan, and we were about the same age, and so we had all the same references and stuff. So yeah, we were able to bond pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And I was eager to work with him again after that experience.
I noticed that the credits for 8, 9, and 10 list the two of you as storytellers rather than writer and penciler.
I think we did that because we were collaborating more closely, and I think even talking through plots. So that he wasn't a co-writer per se, but it was more collaborative. And I think we put that because we, again, a little high on ourselves of wanting, like Wolfman and Perez, Faerber and Eigel, just a team.
You actually wrote yourselves into the book at the end there.
Yeah.
Who came up with that? And
I honestly don't remember if that was me or Jamal. It's a coin toss. I can't remember. It could have come from either of us.
Okay. Did you get any pushback from Marvel?
I don't think so. I think because the book was ending, and it was never like nobody cared. Like nobody was paying any attention to it.
So around this time, you're working for both Marvel and DC on various titles. Growing up, were you a Marvel or a DC guy, or were you into both? And
I was both. I was probably slightly more a DC fan than a Marvel guy, but I was very hardcore into both. I was pretty immersed in both continuities. But if push came to shove, I would probably fall on the side of DC.
Okay. Was there any big difference between the two companies at the time, working for them?
Sorry, are you talking about work as a writer, or were you talking as a fan of? Okay.
As a writer.
Okay, you're talking about as a writer. Okay, I was answering that question just as a fanboy growing up.
Yeah, no, the first part was as a fan, and now as a writer.
As a writer, thinking back, boy, it's so long ago that they kind of blur together in my memory in terms of, so they felt kind of the same. Their offices were both in New York City. I would go into both fairly regularly because after I broke in Seattle, I moved to New York. Not that much later, 6 months, a year later, and lived there for a while, and would go into the offices regularly. But yeah, I don't remember them feeling that different, or the experiences. They were both kind of the same. They were both, the editor kind of had final say. Other more popular books were going to pull characters away from yours if they wanted to, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Makes sense. Now, one project you did with DC, or at least a studio subset thereof, was you did a number of Robotech books for Wildstorm.
Yes.
Were you a fan of the show as a kid? And then
I was.
When you were working on that, what kind of extra hoops did you have to jump through for a licensed title like that?
Yeah, I was a Robotech fan as a kid. So that's why I got that gig, I think. And then I remember we worked pretty closely with Tommy Yoon, who's a big Harmony Gold Robotech guy, executive there. He's also an artist and a writer, I think. And I remember he was involved, but I don't remember there being huge hoops. Gosh, I might have even just been cleaning up his plots and turning them into comic book scripts. Like, I'm trying to remember how much of that came out of my head and how much of it was just adapting what they had already. Boy, I haven't thought about Robotech in so long. Sorry, I don't remember.
That's okay. The next question changes topics entirely, so this seemed like a natural endpoint for this section. However, if you just can't wait and want to hear the entire interview, with all the ums, uhs, and you-knows still in there, you can become a patron for just $1 per month and get access to the uncut version of all of my interviews, as well as a monthly shout-out and extra written and audio content from the previous version of the show. If you'd like a free way to help the show out, leaving a 5-star review at Apple Podcasts or other podcast site is always appreciated. Either way, as long as you continue to listen, we'll always say,
welcome to Geektown. Population, us.
Questions for the Welcome to Geektown interviews are written by me, Kurt Onstead. I also host, edit, and produce the podcast. Theme song was written by Aaron Levitz, logo art by Archie Santana.